Imagine burning your mortgage at age 30. Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, your actuary at Taxevity. I help people transfer financial risks with life insurance, health insurance, and pensions. Our guest today is Sean Cooper. Sean, what do you do when you're not being interviewed?
I'm a personal finance writer. I'm also a senior pension analyst, and I'm a landlord, and that's about everything.
And besides that, you've paid off your mortgage. When you were here last time, you were talking about having a goal of paying off your mortgage by age 31. And what age were you when you finished paying it off?
I was 30 and a half, so I guess I consider myself ambitious. I kind of set that ambitious goal of age 31, and I ended up achieving it 6 months early, so I was definitely happy about that.
Right, because I was contacting you to see how you were doing in your progress, and you said, oh, I've already paid it off. Wow, because it's really good to have guests who have achieved their goals, because your interview about trying to be financially independent at 31 is our most viewed interview ever. So It shows that there's a lot of interest in your topic, and I'm really glad that you achieved the goal. And you've been getting a lot of media attention for achieving your goal. Whereabouts have you been seen?
Well, originally the story came out on CBC's The National, and I instantly I got so many people contacting me. I had people contacting me that hadn't seen me in 10 years, saying that they'd seen me on the news. And then they had the story on the CBC website, and it ended up getting over 700,000 page views and 15,000 social media shares. So it was one of the most successful stories ever for the business section. And basically, I mean, this was CBC's words, not mine. The story went viral. So people were sharing the story. Parents were sharing it with their kids a lot. And I was seeing it all over social media. And even 3-4 days after the story had come out and it wasn't on the main page anymore, it was still getting a ton of page views. So it's definitely nice to see that people were interested in my story and using it as an example for their children.
Mm-hmm. And I think the CBC interview was an excellent one. They did a lot of good filming there, and it tells a nice story. And I was reading the comments below the article on the website, and there were hundreds, if not more. And some of the questions there weren't really answered, and I thought I'd ask you some of them here for the benefit of people who are curious. First of all, how much was your house worth?
I purchased my house for $425,000. I had a down payment of $170,000, leaving me with a mortgage of $255,000.
Okay, and how much is your house worth now?
It's worth about $600,000. I mean, it's in Toronto, so the prices just keep going up and up.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like it was a very good investment, regardless of whether you had a mortgage left or not.
Well, definitely. It's in a nice part of Toronto. It's in the Bluffs area, and I mean, my house has my neighborhood has $1 million houses in it. So I think it's a neighborhood that's just going to keep getting better and better.
Mm-hmm. Because location is really key in real estate.
Exactly.
One of the other questions that people reading the CBC article were asking was, where did you get the $170,000 down payment?
It was basically just by working hard and saving the money myself. So I actually started saving the down payment when I was still in university. When I was in university, I would work full-time during the summer at internships, as well as I was working 3 jobs at university. I was working at the university in the MBA office. I was working part-time at a supermarket, and I was also doing freelance writing back then. So I managed to start saving my down payment before I even graduated, and then I graduated at the end of 2009. So between then and August 2012, when I purchased my house, I was saving as much of my money, probably 80 or 85, 90% of my paycheck I was putting into savings, and that's how I managed to come up with a down payment that size. And I was, at the same time, I was still paying my parents rent to live at home. So
wait a second, your parents were charging you rent?
Yes, but I mean, I wanted to help out my mother because she was a single mother and she didn't have a great pension or anything like that. So I didn't mind helping her out. I mean, I think it's fair that when I'm earning a full-time paycheck that I at least contribute towards household costs. So I don't hold any animosity from paying rent or anything.
Yeah, and sometimes doing those sorts of things helps people build better skills, which are very useful in life.
Exactly. I mean, if it wasn't for my parents, I probably wouldn't be as good with money and frugal as I am today. So I have a lot to owe to them.
Mm-hmm. What is it about having a mortgage that worried you so much?
Well, I mean, with housing prices the way they are today, when I purchased my house, I had over $250,000 debt to my name. I mean, $255,000 is a lot for any one person to handle. So I just wasn't comfortable with having that amount of debt. So I vowed to pay off my mortgage as soon as possible. I mean, with the typical 25-year amortization, people are buying houses later and later, and it used to be considered taboo to carry debt into retirement, but now it seems to be a lot of people are doing that. So I just didn't want to have, 6 figures of debt over my head for the next 25, 30 years. So I just wanted to get that paid off and finished with as soon as possible. So, I didn't have that stress of having to worry, if I ever lost my job, what I was going to do to pay the mortgage. I just wanted to make sure it was finished and done and move on to the next chapter of my life.
Mm-hmm. And you look like a very determined person that when you've got a goal, you work towards it.
Definitely. I mean, when I set a goal, I'm not like some people who set New Year's resolutions and by, for example, to get in shape, and by the time that it's the end of January, they give up. I mean, when I set myself a goal, I make sure that I'm going to achieve it. So that was definitely an ambitious goal, but I took a look at the amount of money I was making and what it was going to take to pay it down in 3 years, and I thought that I could do it, and lo and behold, I actually accomplished it.
Well, how did your family react when you told them you were planning to pay off your mortgage in 3 years?
Quite honestly, they thought I was crazy for setting a goal like that. They, thought I was going to kill myself by working so hard, but by the time I got to around 1.5 years or 2 years, then they were a lot more supportive, because they saw how close I was to achieving my goal, and I guess they admired me for being so determined. And I mean, I view it as a short-term pain for long-term gains. So even though I worked really hard the last 3 years, after this, I'm able to enjoy financial independence for the rest of my life. So I think it's worth it.
What would you do differently if you were starting today?
I'd say that I would definitely try to get more of a work-life balance, because during the time that I was trying to pay off my mortgage, I was working typically up to 80 hours a week. Some weeks I would work 100 hours. So I didn't have much of a social life during that time. So I definitely regret that. So if I could do it over again, I'd perhaps only work 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week, but that's still a lot of hours compared to the average person. But I would definitely cut back on working so much, and maybe pay off my house instead of 3 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. I think that's still pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm. And what would you suggest to someone who is married, say, and has children?
Well, I like to say, like, my story, I found it was very polarizing. Other people thought, this is a great thing that this guy did. I want to follow in his footsteps. And other people were like, this isn't realistic for me. So I would agree that every person's financial situation is different. So if you have a family, like if you're married with a spouse and you have dependents like children, this might not be realistic, but that doesn't mean you can't do things to pay down your mortgage sooner. Maybe instead of 25 years, you can pay it down in 20 years or 15 years. I mean, there's always strategies. Some of the things that you can get from my story to pay down your mortgage sooner, like you can basically take a look at your budget. I think it's a good practice to take a look at your budget maybe every 6 months and reassess your expenses and see where you can cut back. Like if you're spending a lot of money on the gym but you're not going, I mean, do you really need to continue to pay that? Or if you're spending a lot of money on cable and you're only watching TV 5 hours a week, is it really worth that? I mean, some people just blindly write checks to the cable company, but I think it's a good practice to take a look at all of your expenses, especially the recurring ones, because that adds up to a lot of money at the end of the day, and that could be money that you're putting towards being mortgage-free sooner.
Mm-hmm. When you had your mortgage, wow, it's amazing to say that because you only had it for 3 years. But when you had your mortgage, did you have protection like disability insurance, critical illness insurance, life insurance?
Yes, I had disability insurance and critical illness insurance through my work. I didn't have any like term life insurance because I don't have any dependents or a spouse, so it just didn't make sense for me. But for myself, like my biggest asset is my ability to earn income and pay down the mortgage. So disability insurance is definitely a must-have. So my work, I'm lucky to have that through my work, and I cycled to work every day. Luckily, nothing ever happened to me, but I knew I'd be protected if something happened. So I'm glad that I had insurance. And a lot of people overlook insurance, but it's definitely very important to have because you might not care about now, but if something happens to you later on, you'll be very thankful that you have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really glad you took those precautions because sometimes people will have a goal, but they don't think of other things that could affect them on the path to that goal.
Exactly.
Do you feel that you are financially independent now?
I would say so. I have no debt at all. I see financial independence as basically being able to live off of the assets that you have. And with my rental income, it basically covers all the household expenses. Plus I have a profit from it. So if I wanted to tomorrow, I could stop working, but I love what I do as a senior pension analyst as well as a personal finance writer. So I don't plan to stop until I don't find it fun anymore. And hopefully that's never. So I would consider myself financially independent, and it's great to say at 30 years old that I'm financially independent. I never thought I'd achieve it by this age, maybe my 50s or 60s, but it's a good feeling to have. And if I want to hop on a plane tomorrow and go traveling, I have that option. So it's nice to have options.
How many jobs are you working now, and roughly how many hours a week are you working now?
Well, I'm working as a senior pension analyst, so I'm working probably 50 hours a week at that, and I'm also still a personal finance writer, probably working like 20-25 hours a week at that, and I'm a landlord as well, and it depends on, it depends on what happens. If something happens with a home repair, it might take me more time one week than the other.
And what are you planning to do next?
Well, as I mentioned, I definitely like to travel because I didn't really have the opportunity to do that. I'd like to eventually get married. That's something that happens when it happens. I have no control over that. I also like to write a book. I'm just trying to pitch that to publishers right now because my story got a lot of traction on social media and it seems popular, so I'd like to kind of tell the steps that I went along to pay off my mortgage sooner so that people could follow in my footsteps. I mean, they don't have to pay it off by 30, but they can take bits and pieces from my story and maybe pay down their mortgage 5 years sooner, or for millennials, save, a lot of millennials giving up on the dream of home ownership, they could realize that it's still possible if they're willing to be financially disciplined. So I'm working on that as well. And I'd also like to get more into money coaching because I've been doing writing over the years, but I'd like to get out there and help people more get a better handle of their finances, because I find with the lack of financial literacy in this country that a lot of people don't understand basic things like mortgages. It's not until they get a house and they learn the hard way that and end up losing money that they learn about it. So I'd like to teach them beforehand so that they can achieve financial independence, earlier in life than when they reach like 65.
Those are very good goals. What's your key message for the people watching today?
I would say that even though I achieved financial independence at 30, my success comes down to goal setting. You might not be able to achieve financial independence at the same age as me, but you can still set yourself financial goals. So I think it's definitely important to keep an eye on your finances and track your net worth. If you can't do it quarterly, like twice a year, and just make sure your net worth is going up, and always keep an eye on your budget and see where you can save money, and set yourself goals, and basically take the steps necessary in order to reach those goals. You know, if you want to save towards a house and you know you need to have a down payment of $50,000, then you know take a look at how much money you can save a month and see how long it will take you to achieve that goal, and do what it takes to achieve it. Because if you like if inaction is not going to get you anywhere. It's about doing what's necessary in order to reach your goals. So you have to, I mean, it's not always fun, but you have to show financial discipline. And while it might be nice to go out for dinner, you know, 3 to 4 times a week with your friends, perhaps you can just join them for cocktails instead. So it's just about doing what it takes to achieve your goal, and being determined and ambitious, and then you can achieve financial independence one day, like myself.
What's the best way for people to reach you?
You can check out my website, seancooperwriter.com. That's Seancooper writer.com. And you can check out my work, as well as contact me for writing, freelance writing, as well as money coaching and speaking opportunities.
Thanks very much for dropping by.
Thank you, Pramod.